Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor, Pro Fan Sports Podcast, back at you with another one. My boy, Vlad, Barry, and today we got a special guest in the building, very hard-working man, Michael Lombardi, man. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's good to be here. You got to be hardworking. You got to keep it going, right? You get old, you can't stop. You know, if you stop, it might be the end.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely right. For sure. That's the truth right there. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a pleasure having you on, Michael. It's an honor having you on this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. I love talking about football, so it's really a pleasure. So it's one of the greatest things in life to be able to talk about something you love. And, you know, one thing about football, everybody loves it and they all have an opinion of it. So it's great to talk about. That's why I wrote Gridiron Genius, because it's kind of a sport that I think people really can resonate with because it applies in different venues and different disciplines. So it's fun. It's always good to be with people that love football.
Yeah. And you got 2 Super Bowl rings as well, huh?
I got 3, actually. Yeah. I got
3?
I got
3 of them. Yeah.
I got 1 my first year in the league in 1984, and then I've got 2 with the Patriots in 14 and 16. So, I kind of ended my career with 1 and started my career with 1. I lost 1. I had a Super Bowl losing ring when we lost the Raiders. We lost to Tampa Bay. So when you go to the Super Bowl, you're the AFC or the NFC champion, whichever you are, whatever team you work for. And if you lose the game, you're still that champion of it. Like the Bengals get a ring for being the AFC champion. It's not as good as ring as the world champion, but second place.
Yeah, somebody needs to update Wikipedia. It's telling me 2 Super Bowl.
They're off on the count.
I don't go to that. As long as I kind of stay away from most of that stuff. It's usually inaccurate anyway. One thing about Wikipedia, when I wrote, it's kind of an interesting, it's an encyclopedia, but when I wrote my new book, I did use Wikipedia, but I only used Wikipedia for the references. So for example, if there was an article about John and it had a comment and it had 13 next to it, in the hyperlink. And if you click that hyperlink, you went to, if you could find the article that they derived the note from, now at least you had research. Whereas if there was just a note with no research, to me that you couldn't use it.
Yeah, so I mean that's good advice there. That's what I need to start doing, for these shows right there. So we just had the Hall of Fame. I was looking some stuff up, and you were, I believe, on a show talking about who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What would you think about this past week's Hall of Fame, and how was it for you?
On a broader scale, I think the Hall of Fame is kind of a political election. In American politics, oftentimes it isn't a select. It becomes the election is by the voters. In Hall of Fame voting or pro, it's kind of it's a selection process, and who can argue the loudest and who can present the best case. So there's a lot of guys that have been really overlooked. A lot of the older players in the league have been overlooked. And I've been on a campaign about Sterling Sharp, and Sterling Sharp is what I tweeted the other day. I mean, look, I think Tony Vaselli was a Hall of Fame talent. There's no denying that. The guy's uniform never got dirty. That being said, he only played 6 years. And if you're a Hall of Fame player, you play 6 years. Now, I know he got hurt, and God knows I don't want anybody to get hurt, but he only played 6 years. Sterling Sharpe played 7, and they say he didn't play enough to get into the Hall. So
Makes no
I'm
sense.
confused here. Like it's too short for Sterling, but it's okay for Tony. Now think about this. Think about this for a second. I mean, Drew Pearson got in last year. I think he's got 45 career touchdowns. He played 11 years in the NFL. You would all say, the 3 of you would agree, Julio Jones is going in the Hall of Fame, right? He's going in. He's great, right? Okay.
Without question, no doubt.
All right. He's played 11 years. He's got 61 touchdowns. Okay. Sterling Sharpe played 6. He's got 65 touchdowns. He only played 7 years.
You got to go in.
I can go through chapter and verse of this. Like, it's just insane. And it wasn't his fault he got a neck injury that kept him out. So for me, my new book touches a lot of this. There's a lot of injustices that goes into the Hall of Fame. It's a political argument. And first and foremost, more than anything, it's done by voters that have never been behind the curtain. They've never been in the league, really. Now, they've added some people in there to help. But for example, we wouldn't be enjoying the Hall of Fame the way we enjoy football if it wasn't for Clark Shaughnessy's forward pass. The inventor of the forward pass isn't even in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Hey, that's wild. Wow. I didn't even know that.
A lot of people don't know that. You know, they just come up and then so what happens is who presents the coach, who presents the player or the coach. And when it's players that are easy to go in the Hall of Fame, the presenter doesn't have a lot to do. But when it becomes a little bit of that nebulous gray area, then the presenter really becomes who's the better debater. You know, how does the guy get in the Hall of Fame? So for me, what I try to write about is like, let's cut through the bullshit. Let's look at the player. Let's look at the time. Let's look at the place. And let's not just think new is always better than old. There's a lot of guys, especially the receiving corps, that have Stanley Morgan from the New England Patriots, 75 career touchdown passes. He made Pro Bowls, but never made All Pro. And, you know, and so he gets overlooked. Whereas when you went to a game against Stanley Morgan, your ass was scared he was going to take the top off the defense.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that makes the Hall of Fame. Dick Vermeil, really a wonderful man, great coach. Okay. But he even said it in his presentation. Now, there's only been 9 human beings on planet Earth, 9, that have won 200 or more NFL games in their career. 9. Okay. 2 of them aren't in the Hall of Fame. Now, there's been over 500 coaches who have coached in the NFL. 9 have won 200. Dan Reeves and Marty Schottenheimer, and they can't get in the Hall of Fame. And Dick Vermeil gets in before them. When Dick Vermeil really has a 52% winning percentage, he won 1 Super Bowl, and the way he won that Super Bowl, so we're all clear here, is he was 2 years in St. Louis. He was getting ready to get fired. And the owner of the Rams said, either you hire Mike Martz or we're going to make a change. And he hired Mike Martz. Now, he had to fire Jerry Rome. He didn't want to do it. He did not want to do it. This is all factual. I'm not making this up. He didn't want to do it, but he did. And he brought in Martz, and then we got the greatest show on turf. And it was Martz's offense. It wasn't Vermeil's. It was Martz's. Now, he was the head coach, and he gets credit for it. But to put him in front of Marty, to put him in front of Reeves, Shanahan, Holmgren, that's hard.
And why are those 2 coaches that have won more than 200 games, why aren't they in the Hall of Fame? Great
question. So to Schottenheimer, he didn't win a big game, didn't win the playoffs. Okay, I grant you that. That's a good argument. You know, I mean, it's valid. But when you win 200, that means you've had some level of sustainable consistency in winning. And if you look at the quarterback Schottenheimer played with, other than Phillip Rivers, it hasn't been an elite group of there's no Hall of Fame quarterback he played with. You know, he got a lot out of his team. Reeves, he doesn't get in because he got destroyed in Super Bowls and he had Elway. And people say, well, he had Elway. Well, he took Atlanta to a Super Bowl with Chris Chandler at quarterback. Now, he got beat by Denver, but the guy's a really good coach. Plus, when you add in Dan Reeves, the player, Dan Reeves, the coach, Dan Reeves, the team builder. You know, he drafted 2 Hall of Fame, three or four Hall of Fame players when he was in Denver. He was the general manager too. So when you start adding all those things up, how do you not put him in?
It makes a lot of sense. I actually started, you know, I definitely understand what you're talking about, especially with Terrell Owens not going on first ballot. I thought that was completely wrong right there. And
We don't.
Brady went in and he didn't go in.
We do not equate. We just look at receptions, right? We look at reception. Art Monk spent 12 years in the National Football League. I think he had 61 or 56 touchdown passes. He's in the Hall of Fame, and everybody, Art Monk was great. Sterling Sharp, if we're going to play outside and pick up teams, we're picking Sterling Sharp before Art Monk. There's no doubt. I mean, Monk was a great player, don't get me wrong, caught a lot of passes, but when you drove to the stadium Sunday morning, you were worried about Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark. Art Monk was going to get his catches. Andre Reed has 85 touchdowns. I think we don't talk enough about ratio of touchdowns to catches. Mm-hmm. Like Randy Moss has 156 touchdowns. He had 900 catches, 950 catches. Like, that's insane. Like one out of every 8 times he's in the end zone. Like that's a Hall of Famer.
Right. Facts. Absolutely.
You got to get the ball in the end zone. Just because you convert third downs doesn't make you. It makes you a good player. Doesn't make you a Hall of Famer.
That's the fact. That's the truth.
So sure. would you say that with that, would you say Julian Edelman is a good player, a great player, not a Hall of Famer? Because he was good at converting those third downs.
He was great at it, and
but
he won me 2 Super Bowls, and I'm forever grateful. And he's got great numbers. But there's Gary Collins. There's a lot of receivers that had better numbers. Tommy McDonald's in the Hall of Fame. Okay, Tommy McDonald I think he had 89 touchdowns. Now he got traded for a kicker. Okay, what Hall of Fame player gets traded for a kicker? Okay, he was a little guy who was fast. He was Edelman before Edelman. All right. And I'm not trying to, my book doesn't want to throw anybody out of the Hall of Fame. What my book wants to do is try to standardize the process. When you try to find something out, when you try to build a draft board, or you try to hire somebody for a company, or when you try to build a team, everybody thinks it's about selection. Everybody thinks we're going to go find players. The reality of it is it's about elimination. So what you want to do is set a criteria to eliminate players, to eliminate people that you don't want. And that's what they didn't do. So that's why we have this constant, well, this guy should get in and that guy should get in. No, when you have standard of excellence where there's a threshold and you don't meet it, there's no debate.
So do you think they should come up with a threshold for receivers, quarterbacks, just different thresholds so that it can be standardized of who gets in and who doesn't get in?
No doubt. And it should be too, for the coaches. Like, to me, if you don't go to win a Super Bowl and you have a 57% win percentage and you want 150 plus games, you should, whatever it is. I wrote it all up in my book, in my new book. So I basically did it for the coaches, and try to do that. The other problem is you have owners who want to get in, and they have a lot of political clout with these sports writers, so they can kind of nose their way in. And that takes a spot away from somebody like a Clark Shaughnessy, who's got nobody fighting for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the name of the book?
There's no, I think the working title that I've been working on is called Goal Line to Greatness.
Goal Line to
Greatness. When you write a book, like the working title for my last book, Gridiron Genius, was The Bills of Rights. Because the book was essentially about 2 Bills, Belichick and Walsh. So, and I wanted it to be 10 chapters, and each chapter was going to be a element of the Bill of Rights, kind of like the Bill of Rights, but that got vetoed by the publisher. So it became Gridiron Genius, which I hated the title because it's not about me, it's about the people I work for.
Mm-hmm. So, Gridiron Genius, a masterclass in winning championships and building dynasties in the NFL. That's the book, right?
That's the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the book. So, and that's a book about what I learned from Walsh and Belichick and Al Davis and some of the people that I was fortunate enough to work for.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Bill Belichick, right? You were an assistant of the Patriots for a while, and he's widely recognized as the greatest coach in the NFL, if not of all time. Lately he's been getting a lot of questions as far as his decisions and running the team and stuff, and I'm sure you're paying attention to what's going on with the team this year, with the lack of offensive coordinator, and, Patriots training camp is big business around here, and everybody's writing about how terrible the training camp has been going on, and, how bad the offense looks. You've been paying attention to that. What's your thought around that?
Well, obviously, I have great confidence in the head coach. I think he's the greatest coach of all time, and whatever the problems are in August, I'm sure he'll get them fixed by the time September rolls around. And why would you not have practices if you're not going to have problems? I mean, what most people mistake is mistakes are a good thing this time of the year. You got to learn from what you're doing. Now, I think part of the reason he doesn't have coordinators is because he wants to be able to, when it goes bad, that he'll take the full responsibility for it. When you lead, and when you're leading people and things go wrong, you got to stand in front of them. When things go well, you stand behind them. Let them take the plays. I think that's kind of what he's doing. This week will be interesting to see what they look like offensively, how that all works together, how it times out. But I know this, whatever problems they have currently, they will be solved because that's what he does for a living. He solves problems. I mean, you don't have the track record that this guy's had over his career of how many wins that he's amassed, and he's all of a sudden forgot to coach. I wrote about this for the Daily Coach today. It's about, you remember the great Jim Mora, you think you know, but you really don't know? Remember that video, right? I wrote that in the Daily Coach. There's 4 levels of knowing. And the people that are criticizing Belichick aren't at the same level of knowing that he's at.
That's a great way to put it. That's like a great way to summarize it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really what it is. And so whatever expert however, when we accumulate knowledge, there's a process we go through. And that's what Mora, he didn't say it the way I said it, but that's kind of, you think you know, but you really don't know. Well, when you're watching practice, people think they know, but they really don't know because they don't know what's going on at the practice. Unless you're there in the building, you don't know.
I mean, I want to agree with you, and I think that, just like you said, Belichick knows a lot more about the people that are criticizing him. But I just want to push back on the fact that with this new quarterback, this is his second year in the league on the team, and they're basically introducing him to what's being said. It's a new system, a new offensive system, and I think the lack of continuity is something that's not going to benefit him in the long run. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say this. Look, I would push back on being optimistic if it doesn't look good. And I would say this to any Patriot fan. If it's bad, he's going to fix it. Because he has this one line that never goes away: for the good of the team. I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the team. And that's always going to be the case. So continuity with the quarterback is going to be critical. What he's got to figure out is, at what point does he feel like it's not going well and he's got to make the change? And then ultimately he'll do that. I have confidence that he knows the symptoms, he knows the problems, and he'll figure out how to solve it. Now, having not seen it on tape in a game, we'll see it Thursday night. It's hard for me to judge right now.
Yeah.
For sure. No, it does. I wanted to ask you, Michael, how is it working for Bill Belichick? I know you said you'd worked with him during your time with the Patriots. You were assistant to the coaching staff, I believe. So how is it working with a coach like Bill Belichick?
Well, it was the greatest experience of my life because it was somebody who was fully committed, somebody who you never really was always thinking about how to make the team better, never really was rested. He has this thing, what I call competitive stamina, this ability to keep competing day after day after day. He never tires. He never gets tired. He works hard as anybody. He wants to constantly get better. I mean, the year we were going to the Super Bowl in 2014, he was thinking about the draft. We got to get to the Senior Bowl. We're going to miss the Senior Bowl. We got to get down there. So he's really, to me, it was the greatest thrill of my life, working for him in Cleveland for 5 years and then coming back with him for 3 years in New England.
Yeah, that's true. You did work with them in Cleveland. Yeah, I didn't realize you guys were there at the.
Yeah, we started that thing together in '90. I mean, when he first got hired in Cleveland, I was there in '91. So it was a great. We started a lot of the Patriot way, like a lot of things, became trial and error in Cleveland. And when he got to New England and he was able to refine what he was doing, it became a lot better.
What do you say about, the foreign players, the debate about, who's more responsible for what in terms of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick? Do you have an opinion around that?
I do. I think that they're both responsible. I think that, look, LeBron James is one of the best basketball players in the world. Did he help the Lakers win a title this year? Like, it's more than just one player, right? And Brady would be the first to say that. 2001's offense, go back and watch that, and watch the 2019 offense, watch the '07 offense, the changes that were made. And, look, some of the Super Bowls that they won, the first Super Bowl that they won, they didn't win because of Brady's offensive acumen. The last Super Bowl that they won, they didn't win because of Brady's offensive acumen. I mean, think about that. The Brand game was what, 13-7?
13-3, right.
13-3. Okay, so like the first one, the greatest show on turf, they stopped them. So, it was a collaborative effort. But here's what I would say that makes Brady so unique is Brady allowed the culture to be developed. So when Belichick was bitching about, practice execution becomes game reality, Brady was willing to do whatever he had to do to make sure that he did it. And he fell within the culture. And if it meant him getting yelled at, he didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, he's one of those superstars. It's, just takes the criticism and just moves on. And just to bring it back around, Mac Jones. What are your thoughts around Mac Jones? And he's big around here, in the New England area, and I mean, rightfully so. He's done some good stuff, as a young player already. Did you like the pick for us, and how far do you see Mac Jones going?
I love the pick. I think he's going to be really good. I think what he did this offseason was what he needed to do. He needed to get his body in shape. One of the reasons why those pitchers in baseball run the outfield is because when they throw the ball, it's required that they have great lower body strength. So he needed to get his body in better shape, and I think he did that this year. And, last year he did some remarkable things. He didn't throw the ball as much, but their offensive line did well. They could run the ball. I think Mac's going to have a really long career, and he's going to be very effective at what he's doing. And the thing that makes Mac so unique is, like Brady, he has competitive stamina. He's going to compete and work his tail off, and he's now able to kind of take over the team and run the team the way, and you can just read the quotes in the paper by the players and what they're saying. And, they know he's fully committed. And when your best player, as Jeff Van Gundy says, when your best player sets the tone of intolerance for anything that's in the way of winning, you're going to be okay.
Now that the AFC is very loaded quarterback-wise, and I think a lot of teams have made improvements toward the offseason, where do you see the Patriots fit into that gauntlet of the AFC? Do they make the playoff? Or they're a wild-card team? Do they get to beat the Bills this year?
Well, I mean, I think, look, they've got to show that they can even get the Bills to punt. I mean, last year, in the last 2 games of the year, they couldn't get the Bills to punt. So they've got to make some significant strides defensively against the Bills, against Josh Allen. And the way Josh Allen was running the football, the way he was kind of operating that offense last year, with really utilizing his feet more than anything as a runner. He was running the single wing in Buffalo last week. Make no mistake about it. So I think that's a challenge. Look, there's a lot of great quarterbacks, but here's what I would say. The teams that win are the teams that play good in all 3 phases. We get so caught up in somebody throwing for 400 yards, when in reality, does it matter if you throw for 400 or 200 if you win the game? So however you got to play the game to win the game. And I would say this is you've got to control the pace of the game when you're playing against great quarterbacks. If you're playing Peyton Manning and he has the ball for 38 minutes, you're going to lose. So you got to control the pace of the game. You got to get him to play 28 minutes, not 38, and you got to get him to play 25. So that's the art of winning football games, is how you developed a plan, developed a strategy to win the game. Everybody talks about, I got to have a plan to win. No, the strategy is what is critical. You know, strategy and plans are way different. And so Belichick will have a good strategy. Now, does he have enough talent on defense? We shall see. And I think that's going to be interesting to watch this summer is how fast they got on defense. Last year, Hightower was too slow. Jamie Collins was too slow. Van Noy was too slow. They were really slow. When the field on a horizontal level, they couldn't cover the width of the field. You know, and so those 5-yard checkdowns became 12 yards. A 3-yard flat became 9. See, they're hidden yardage. And when you're fast on defense, that 3-yard catch, boom, tackle, 3 yards. You know, and they couldn't do that last year.
With the first preseason game is in a couple of days. And, you know, and as coaches, I know you guys are looking at so many different players, trying to evaluate talent, trying to see what's going to make the team, what's making improvement, what players can bring their play from practice to the field. I mean, as spectators, as people that are watching on TV, what should we be looking for, and what do you look for yourself when you're, like, for example, watching the Patriots on Thursday?
I look at parts of the team, right? So I want to see, you know, like I want to watch the Patriots offensive line if they play their first group. You know, I want to watch how their pad level is. I want to watch them get off the ball. I want to watch the defensive line, their pad level, shedding blocks, running to the football. I want to see the team speed of their front seven. I'm not worried about their back 4 guys. I'm worried about the front seven. Because if they're going to stop Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, you got to be able to run and chase them. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. Some of those younger players, are they developing? Are they coming around and seeing what they do? It's a lot of pieces in the preseason. It's not because you don't see everybody working together. You know, you don't see it. Trent Brown's going to be at left tackle. Will he play a lot? Probably not, but I want to watch him at left tackle. Isaiah Wynn at right tackle, I think it's a better move. So a lot of that is Jonnu Smith. Can he make a jump in the passing game? We want to see some of that. I mean, it's all about pieces. It's compartmentalized. It's not just, okay, we're going to go out there. And can they execute what the plan is? One thing about preseason is it's so simple. The plan is so simple. The game plan, what they're planning on running, the offense is very boiled down. And so that allows the players to play fast. And you want to see who's playing fast.
Awesome. Thank you.
For sure. Just wanted to ask you, Mike. I know there's been a lot of, questions in New England, particularly with, Matt Patricia and Joe Judge coming back, and are they the right guys to be coaching, this offense, and also coaching, Mac Jones, and are they the right guys for Mac Jones to, to go to if he, has any questions or anything he wants to address with the offense. So, you know those guys better than we do. What are your thoughts on those guys that are coaching the offense and coaching Mac Jones?
Well, I mean, I think it's, obviously it's a transition for both two guys. Joe coached the receivers one year and then he became a head coach. Matt's always been a defense coach, but Matt started out as an offensive coach. When Matt's first job in New England, he was Dante Scarnecchi's assistant. So it's going to be some growth. There's no doubt. I mean, that's going to be an adjustment, and it's going to have to tie together. Nick Caley, the tight end coach, is there. He's a holdover from the last staff, so they're going to have some kind of there. But I think like players, coaches have to grow and develop too, right? Like, you can't stand in front of the players and say, we got to play better, fellas. Well, you got to coach better too. You can't stand in front of the players and say, well, we got to make improvements. Well, you got to improve the coaching staff too. So, but what I do know about Bill is Bill is going to fill in wherever there's voids, because that's what he can do. So I don't really know how it all work out with Matt and Joe. I'm sure they're trying their asses off and doing the best they can because they both are really hard workers. But I think ultimately, whatever goes wrong, Bill's going to make sure he fixes it.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll see how everything, goes with the Patriots this preseason. to move away from the Patriots a little bit. I know you have your eyes on the NFL, and you were a former GM of the Cleveland Browns, and they got a lot going on, especially at the most important position on the field, which is the quarterback. Recently, Deshaun Watson got the 6-game suspension, and the NFL went ahead and appealed that. Can they come back and give him more time? Like how much time do you think they can give Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, that's a hard one. For me, I've always said this. I didn't hear all the evidence. I wasn't privy to the testimony and all that. And Sue Robinson that's been her job her whole life. And so she's been in this. And so she rendered a decision. I think the decision that she rendered was difficult for her because the NFL has been so inconsistent with how they penalize players. One guy gets 6 games for steroids, another guy gets 4. Ben Roethlisberger got 6 for his incident, got reduced down to 4. Like there's so many inconsistencies that I think it's kind of unfair to get into it. So, for me, I was surprised the NFL appealed it because why did they appoint Robinson if they weren't going to go by her ruling? And I thought that's where the Players Association was. I think this is headed for federal court, and I was hoping it wouldn't do that. So maybe there'll be a settlement here in the last day or two. I would suspect something's going to happen in the next 48 hours because there's no new testimony coming in. Like the PA's not bringing more new testimony, and the owners are not. It's going to be this judge is going to rule based on what he sees of what Robinson did and how he views the other precedent of cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did see that an argument of Players Association is the lack of punishment for team owners and, things that they've done in the past, like situations with the Cowboys, the Washington, and of course, Mr. Kraft, and I think Jerry Jones came out and said that's kind of like their playbook or something like that, something along those lines. Do you think the Players Association has a point and, can Deshaun Watson win, if he should go against the NFL?
Well, I think what they're saying is what is the precedent? Why it's the same argument. Why is Tony Baselli 6 years okay and Sterling Sharp 7 years not? It comes right back to the same thing. Whenever you don't have precedent, you always have an individual case that you cite. Well, what happened here? Why wasn't this handled? And I think it is important. I mean, one thing we do know for sure, the personal conduct rule is for everybody. It isn't just for the players.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to agree with that stuff because I'm like, there's been some stuff going on. I'm like, it's just like it's not uniform. Everything.
That's the issue, right? Yeah.
It's really not uniform. You
I
got.
mean, even though we all know there are, when you have laws with understanding what the penalties are of the crimes you might commit, people still do those. So that's not going to stop that. But what it does is it makes it easier for the disbursement of penalty. Exactly if you do X, this is what it's going to be. And when you do it random on a line item basis, there always comes what political games are being played behind the scenes.
Yeah. One last question I have around the NFL, a guy that's not unfamiliar to NFL ruling and taking the NFL, to court is a Tom Brady. The last week he's been in the headlines, talking about tampering and things like that with the Miami Dolphins starting in 2019. And I think a lot of people are making a case that it's a bad look for Tom Brady and, and him operating on different rules and things like that. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, I do. I think that, first of all, you have to understand Bruce Beal, the minority owner of the Miami Dolphins, and Tom are really close friends. I mean, they're really close friends. I think they're one of the best friends. And so, I don't know if the tampering, and I'm not absolving Brady or the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they knew what they were doing. But when you have a communication with somebody who's your best friend or works for another team, you could look at that as tampering all the time. I think what Miami did was reckless, and I think that's true. I also think part of that fine was, if you read it, they also got fined for their integrity of the game, for the owner walking around the building saying we should lose, we should lose, we should lose. Even though that they never proved he was willing to pay $100,000, and he was saying it as a gesture, they did rule the integrity of the game. So I think part of that, I think it's, look, there's always a lot of gray in players discussing between agents and tampering and all that stuff. This one, because it was so direct, it isn't good. I don't know if it's as bad a look for Brady, who was going to be a free agent anyway. Everybody knew it. It's more of a bad look, I think, for Miami, for them just kind of ignoring the rules completely. I mean, it's not a player's job to say, "Hey, you can't tamper with me."
Yeah, don't talk to me.
Right.
Don't talk to me.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, you want to throw me money? Don't throw me money yet. Wait till March 15th. Like, come on.
Right. No player in the league is gonna say that. Right. Like, that's not how these players are and operate, or they're not their job. So, that's facts.
My last question for you, Michael, is around the Raiders and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels got his second chance at being a head coach. What are you expecting from them and over there?
Well, full disclosure, I mean, my son is their offense coordinator, so I'm praying that they're great. And my heart
There
is
you go.
every week. So, I was a Raider once, and I'm a Raider again. So, look, I think anytime we make mistakes in life, and if we're smart, we learn from them. And what we really are smart is when we learn from other people's mistakes. And I think Josh has been able to be the beneficiary of both. I think he knew the mistakes he made at age 33 in Denver. I think he's watched other coaches leave Bill and make mistakes, whether it's Patricia, whether it's Charlie Weiss, whether it's Romeo, whether it's, Joe Judge, Billy O'Brien, whomever. And I think Josh is really smart. And I think this time with Dave Ziegler by his side, I think it'll be much better.
Okay, no, I definitely been interested to see how he does with this.
He's one of the best coaches I've ever been around. He's really a bright coach. I tried to hire him when I was in Cleveland. I've always thought he was going to be a successful head coach. And I think he's at a point in his life where he will be.
Okay, no, I totally with that for sure. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how he does, and I think he'll certainly do well with the Raiders this time around in his second time being the head coach in the NFL. Just wanted to ask you, Michael, what was your favorite moment in the NFL, and your favorite moment with their time during the Patriots?
I think my favorite moment was when we were all screaming to call timeout and Belichick didn't, and Malcolm Butler intercepted that pass. I think that was one of my favorite times.
That's a great one.
I think that was a moment of pure ecstasy. I think, and then I was able to, after the game, enjoy it with my two sons, my wife, and their wives. So that was probably the best moment of my time with the Patriots. I think that was because, you work in this league, you give up so much of your life to the game, and to be able to enjoy the victories are even better.
Yeah, sure. That's an incredible moment and one of the greatest moments in Patriot history. Like, how did it feel in that moment when everything that was going on felt like there was a million things going on at once, or on both sidelines, but particularly on the Patriots sideline? Like, how was it in the moment before the interception happened?
I mean, you go from absolutely thinking you're going to lose the game to winning. I mean, it just there's an extreme emotions, complete devastation to complete enjoyment. I mean, and it just was. you know, when you watch it, when I see it on television, I still not sure he's going to make the play. You know, and then I was nervous after we intercepted the ball. You know, we had the ball on the 1 yard line. I thought we were going to get a, you know, we were going to get a safety and, you know, and all
Oh
that.
man.
So,
Oh, I
you
know.
know, I still in my head, I didn't think it was over, but it was, wow, it was a great moment.
Absolutely. Sure was. Thanks for sharing that with us. Appreciate it, Michael.
Anytime. Thank you.
Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. We love everything you're doing
Thank
around the NFL, and especially bringing us some Super Bowls here in the New England area, man. So,
Yeah. Well, I enjoy it.
appreciate you again for coming in and spending some time with us and giving us little guys, you know, your time, man. We really appreciate it. And good luck to your son with the Raiders.
Thank you. And I got another one at the Panthers, so he needs a lot of luck too. So I
Yes,
appreciate it.
sir. All of them.
There you go.
Guys, I appreciate it. Good talking to you. Wish you the best.
All right.
Make sure you send me the link so I'll retweet it. All right.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
we'll have to have you again sometime during the season.
Yeah,
and
later in
talk
the year
about
we
some
will.
football games.
You bet. Great. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate
Bye.
it. Yep. Have a good night.
Yes,
Woo.
sir.
There we go. The great Mike Lombardi right there.
I mean, you said it already, man. The great Mike Lombardi. And, you know, if you don't believe us, you can follow him at M Lombardi NFL. You know what I'm saying? Go see everything. What this guy almost has like 200,000 followers on Twitter. You know, he's doing a lot of work around the NFL. Make sure you following him. You know, we appreciate him coming in as a guest and giving us his time. Make sure you're following us on all platforms too. We're at ProFan Sports on all platforms except for Instagram, and that's ProFans_sport. You know, we appreciate the support. If you're still watching, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. You're commenting, you're sharing the content. You know, we're here every single week, man, dropping stuff every day as well. So until next episode, we out.
Out, everyone. Have a good week. See y'all next week.